Thank you for joining us. This conversation is continued from our last episode. You can find that link in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to Shoot the Breeze, a podcast that celebrates the messiness of life, relationships, and Christianity. It's creatively titled because it will be just us shooting the breeze, sometimes with guests, while occasionally saying something important. We hope you enjoy.
Excuse 6, I can't forgive someone who is dead.
Yeah.
So that's one that I've been through.
Yeah.
I'm still wrestling with, because there is a certain amount of, does it matter anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Who'd you have in mind when you wrote that?
Nobody. No. Nobody. That one is a principle that a friend of mine taught. So Scott Frerking, who he's told his story on here, walked through forgiving his dad who was dead. And so that one is a biblical principle based on the Bible. It's a biblical principle. But the application of it, I don't have experience with it. He does. And so that's where that one comes from. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because forgiveness is not really about the other person. This is dealing with that Matthew 18, the unforgiving servant.
Sure.
Is that what it is?
I was going to draw stuff, and I could have drawn that up there, but I can't figure out how to make it draw.
Is it not drawing? Click it, like push down on the pad, and then move it.
Oh!
Yeah, what were you doing? No, you don't press, okay. What do you do? Hold on. This is the most entertaining podcast right now, ever. Oh, weird. Oh, this is weird.
It's just not meant to be. Oh. Did your pen die?
Oh, no, it's saying that it's not. Oh, there we go. Wait. Why doesn't it have...
Oh, hold on. Is it because I put the mouse up here?
Yeah.
Okay, but now make it right.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did, see.
Okay.
Do Command Z, Command Z.
What?
Do Command Z. One more time. That way you can erase that one.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see it in the light.
There you go. Okay, yeah. There.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So you were telling me about your mother. No, please.
My mother's alive.
No, Freud.
Freud?
Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Tell me about your mother. It was just
just
a joke.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Missed, flop.
Yeah.
Move on. Okay, but no, okay. So
one.
but the quote specifically, that lack of vulnerability
Yeah.
is incomplete forgiveness.
Yeah.
That specifically. Did you have your dad in mind when as you're writing this section?
No, because my dad's still alive.
But we're not about him being dead.
Yeah.
But the inability to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. This is honestly, like, this is why I hate when people apologize. What?
I'm just trying it out while you're talking.
Oh, got it. No, this is, okay, so I have a real issue when people apologize. Because I want action before I hear their words. Meaning, I want action to show you are repentant before you say I'm sorry. Why? Because of my dad. So many times, my dad would call a big family meeting and be like, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. Oh. And by like the third time, you're like, oh, cool, another family meeting where it's meaningless.
Something I've always wondered, not that you sit around and talk about your dad all the time, but
yeah,
where were his parents?
His dad was super abusive. I think we talked about it.
Okay.
On the other podcast,
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Thank you for recalling my
Yeah,
memory.
and so you wanted me to be negative. There's so many positive things about my dad. I'm just waiting to get there. I really want to keep it like you were saying. I want it linear. Yeah.
I just the way you said that, I was like, are you being serious?
No. There's I like legitimately have multiple things that I look up to him for.
If I found out that one of my sons was behaving in that manner,
yeah,
I know how I would react.
Oh, his dad was
Well, you're saying his dad was worse.
Way worse.
So no relationship, I'm guessing, between you and them.
No.
Okay, cool.
No. I mean, we would see them sometimes on holidays. I remember when my grandpa died, I was like, I guess we won't see him at Christmas. Like,
That's the way it was for me when my grandfather on my father's side passed.
mm-hmm.
Not that I no ill will, nothing
Yeah.
between him and I, just no relationship. It was very sad for my father, and
Yeah.
I remember being sad for him, but essentially no effect on me.
Yeah.
When my maternal grandfather passed, it was like losing my dad. Because I just spent so much time with him.
Yeah, we live so far away from my grandparents that them dying, I was like, I mean, it's sad. I guess I should be sad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no real relationship.
So who brought in the vulnerability thing for you? Where does that begin for you? And how old were you?
About being vulnerable, being
being being able to share your testimony appropriately vulnerable,
Mhm.
and being honest with chosen people, and not being it's under the blood.
yeah. Okay. Honest. Okay. Now I might be lying here. But as far back, and it may go back to that one youth group where God goes, "Is this how you're going to be? Like a hypocrite like your dad?"
And you were what, 18 at that time?
I would have been like 19 or 20.
Okay.
Because it was between first year Bible school and second year.
Right. Hanging out with youth, that's not weird.
No, I was a youth leader, man. Respectable. I didn't make out, like, I wasn't going out with a
I
girl
didn't say
who was
making
into
out
youth.
with youth. I said
Okay.
hanging out with youth.
Yeah, because it made me feel important. Duh.
Like a celebrity coming back.
Exactly. Yes. No. Yes. That was exactly it. No, you nailed it. Because the youth that I was teaching were like freshmen when I had left.
Right.
Or freshman, junior. And so when I came back, they're like, Bible school, Nate. And I'm like, that's right. I know so much.
Just never mind, I won't use that analogy.
Yeah. No, so I think it goes back to just seeing how my dad lived, and then the challenge of, are you going to live that way?
So it was really just spiritually, you were like, okay, whatever he wasn't, I'm going to be.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I vowed. You know when you can...
It wouldn't matter to me if you did.
No. What I'm saying is I don't remember like going to bed going, I will not be like my dad. I just remember that mental interaction with God going, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like that was the extent of the conversation. And so it was that would continue to pop up in my heart. Nate, you said you didn't want to be that. If you go through with this, you're not being that. If you don't go through with this, you're being that. Just running away from your problems. Kind of going back to the standing up in front of the church.
So when do you put words to this where it's like, okay, appropriate vulnerability, period.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that developed in me when I was walking through, I would say my journey into freedom from pornography was about a 2-year process. Oh man, maybe longer, maybe like 4. I remember one side was dealing with the habit of pornography, which prior to me being a youth pastor standing up in front of people, a lot of what I had dealt with was the like the heart behind it. Why did I go there? A lot of working through my dad issues. Honestly, a lot of my dad issues, I'd gotten a pretty significant amount of freedom by the time I stood up and I'd went to that moment, if you will, that memorial stone is marking when I started dealing simply with the habit. Why do I go here? Like I've already dealt with the emotional, mental side of it. What new habits can I build that I don't have to go to that? And that's when I kind of that journey led me on to developing really pragmatic things. I think, like I said, one of the most spiritual things I've ever done was get up from my computer and go make a sandwich, because it broke that habit in my brain of sitting at the computer when a pop-up came up, getting back to you'd said when did
it begin, that idea, that putting words to it.
Oh, yes.
Appropriate vulnerability being essentially sharing your testimony.
Yeah.
And not just the, I used to be a sinner and God saved me, but like, I sinned with this.
It was when that day. It was that day when someone came up to, like I said, we had about a dozen knuckleheads who came up to us. But I remember one day, that morning, someone came up to me and they go, "Hey, I know you're dealing with this, but when you have time to talk, I struggle with that too. Can you help me get free of it?" And I'm like, worst day of my marriage, right? Like having to stand up worst day of my marriage and ministry, having to stand up and confess this. And someone's coming up to me going, "How do I get free of this?" And I'm like, just from me sharing my story, you get that. And then, dude, the floodgates opened as I walked through freedom, the more I shared my story, the more guys would come up to me going, "Hey, can you help me walk through this?" And so I think that's when, kind of coupling that with, I've had accountability partners, and it was dumb. We would both be like, "You looked at pornography?" "Yeah, I looked at pornography." "Okay, let's just not look at pornography this week." Next week comes around. "You looked at it?" "I looked at." "Okay, let's not do it."
I had something similar with a guy that we were going to quit smoking together. And then it turned into, do you have one? Yeah, I have. Do you have any more? It's right.
Yeah,
I mean, we're already here.
What do you recommend? like
no, it's like, oh, you've still got some?
Yeah.
I can't let you go through this alone.
Oh, see, like mine was like, "You looked at pornography?" "Yeah, I looked at pornography too." "What sites do you recommend?" Right? Like, it's like, "Hey, as long as we're going to do this next week, let's cut the crap."
Right. It gets unhealthy real quick.
But so it was that journey where Lace and I developed the idea of an encouragement partner, where you're not just confessing, you're not even focusing on the negative. What positive things are you doing in the week? So that's where that was that appropriate vulnerability. And then experiences, sharing my story. That's where all that developed.
What was your response? What was the response to it?
The response to what?
When you started having this, when you started espousing this teaching of appropriate vulnerability, sharing your testimony, not being ashamed of what you went through, what's the reception, not just maybe from the people you're talking to, but other church members or church staff?
Oh, everyone loved it.
They loved it.
Honestly, we had a church
for you.
No, hold on though. I do have stories. Honestly, the church that we were with had cultivated an atmosphere of freedom. And that's why Scott was the counseling pastor. He was the freedom pastor there. So we were really in a church where basically Lacey and I are like, "Hey, if I'm ever hypothetical going to be free of this thing on this planet, this is the only church that would happen." Right? Like, kind of best case scenario, if I have a shot, this is it. Now, that being said, when I would go teach and share my story in other churches.
Oh, why would you do that?
Because they had asked us. And so I would share, like one guy, he'd asked me to share my story, like about my dad and all of that. And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, and I know part of your story deals with pornography. Go ahead and leave that out. And I'm like, no, but that's part of my story. And they're like, "Yeah, we really don't want to deal with that here." And I'm like, "Oh, you already are." And Lacey.
I would go as far as say you're dealing with that.
Well, classic. Well, I knew that, but Lacey said it. She's like, she leans over and goes, "Yeah, because he doesn't want to have to stop giving up pornography." And I'm like, "I know."
Was he Jewish or what?
No. Jewish?
Yeah, because don't the Jews, like, they allow it? Because it's not actual adultery?
No. Well, Dennis Prager does, but no, it's not. No. No. Anyways.
That'll be next.
Next
month's topic.
I've had other people come up to me asking me, why do I share it? And I'm now, 15 years in sharing it. But originally I remember there was several pastors and some people will be knuckleheads because they're just living in oblivion that their spouse deals with issues, right? We don't talk about that here. It's like, well, all right, we'll see you in our freedom ministry next year. So, you know what I mean? Like, all right.
So I work with a couple of people that have attended the church, wasn't their cup of tea, moved on.
Yeah.
And then one guy that does on a regular basis. And he was talking to somebody else, third party, about, yeah, it's a good church. My son specifically really likes it. My wife likes it. Oh, my kids like it. And he goes, but the pastor talks about like who he used to be a lot and some of the things he was doing. I don't know why he does that so much. Like it's not good. And I remember sitting there going, it's not that he can't understand.
Yeah.
He's unwilling to.
Usually people say it when they're unwilling to face their own stuff.
Yeah.
And Scott, I think he shared it on this podcast. And I'll be careful if he hasn't. The absolute dumb things that have been said about him, to him, about his life. I'm just like, do you read the Bible? We overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our story. The woman at the well, the city got saved because of her story.
So what's funny is they don't read the Bible.
The demoniacs who the two guys run around naked, cutting themselves. The entire region gets saved because they went home and told their story. Mm-hmm. There's so many places in Scripture that talk about share your story. Paul shared his story. Peter shared his story. The Gospels are written by men who shared their stories, and they're in the Gospels. Like, read.
They don't.
I know, but
they sit there and you know, some people are very fortunate because, for the most part, you get a good message here. Every once in a while you get one, you're like, eh.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody has an off day.
But here's off day.
But as opposed to churches that are just like, and this is why they're going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
This is why the world's going to end, but Christians are going to be saved. You know, it's we talked about a lot of that in the Revelation podcast.
Yeah.
That whole mindset of an us versus them.
It's fear porn. It's let's build up this anxiety so that when Jesus comes back, we'll be saved.
Exactly.
Until then, you should be afraid.
I need to play you that scene from Cold Comfort. Did I send it to you? The quivering church from Cold Comfort Farm. I think I sent you a clip.
It sounds familiar. You probably sent it a while. You should resend it again.
Oh, it's Ian McKellen, phenomenal good actor, not thrilled with his lifestyle, nailed the role of a second Great Awakening Reformed preacher.
Oh, like a Jonathan Edwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He nails it.
All right. I'll have to look
and that's
at it.
Probably who it's modeled after. Honestly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I like Jonathan Edwards. Some of his sermons, man. I when you were giving away books, that's one of the books I took.
Is it? Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's still good.
No, if you're gonna do a second Great Awakening, early, what is it? American pastor Finney.
Yeah, Charles Finney.
Finney, man.
I love Spurgeon. Charles Spurgeon, man. I legitimately.
Yeah, Lacey really likes him.
I think because.
And I feel like
Spurgeon spoke to people like me and her.
Yeah.
He was an all-in guy.
Let me guess, you like Hind's Feet on High Places too.
No, I've never read that. I know what it is though. Never read that.
Can't stand it.
You know,
Oswald Chambers?
Yeah. You know I love Oswald Chambers. You know why I like him? Because I read him...
Because you're emotional? No,
well, but I read him with perspective. Just the same way we encourage people, you fought that uphill and downhill battle with me to like, hey, read it from a Jewish perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Right? It's the word of God, right?
Yeah. Which it never says about itself, but yeah.
Right. So I had to be re-educated, deprogrammed, whatever.
Yeah, right?
And it was self-programming. That's the worst part. Like, at no point will I can admit to picking things up from the Baptist church that may or may not be really doctrinally correct.
Right.
It was self-programming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was just like, well, this is my opinion, and no one's told me different, so it's right. Oswald Chambers' devotional.
Yeah.
What I like about it is it wasn't written as a devotional.
No, it was his own journals.
It was his diaries.
Right? Yeah.
From World War I.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're reading it, I just put myself in the places like, okay, he's in the trench, he's in a field, because he was a stretcher bearer.
Yeah.
For World War I.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more horrific experience. And then to be like, that wasn't so bad. I'm going to go to the mission field where you die.
All right. If you are a fan of Oswald, fine. That's a good devotional, I guess. If you want a real devotional, Streams in the Desert.
Who wrote that one?
I
know the name, but I've never messed with it.
Is it Charles Howell? Charles something. Anyways, his wife, he wrote it as his own devotional, but then his wife published it once he died. And
wives.
And so it's right. And so it's a bunch of collections that he collected, but it was for himself, and then she published it once he died.
That's interesting.
And
I'll check it out.
Here's the thing. It is for someone who is walking through hard times. So during the depression, like time of walking through depression, right? Streams in the Desert got me through that. Like basically I stayed saved because of it. Because everything is like, God's the worst, but I'm still going to trust him. God's doing this against me, but I'll stay safe. Like it's really, especially the original one written in Old English. So I tried picking it up again just like a month ago, and I'm like, oh, this is really depressing.
So
but it was super fruitful during that time.
If you go to the Oswald Chambers, you have classic, modern, and modern classic.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was a Scotsman born in the 1800s, and he wrote there's implicit brogue.
Yeah.
And I prefer the classic because what I found is they change the references.
Yeah. Yeah.
The verse references are different between the two versions. Oh. Not on all of them, but on some of them where somebody was like, I know what he's trying to communicate. I think this verse is better for it.
Yeah, sure.
Or maybe the verses were added later, but I mean, sometimes it's implicit in the text and sometimes it's like a heading.
Yeah.
You don't know which one were him and which one was added. But what I think appeals to me, what appeals to Lacey about it is it's forthright. At no point is he like questioning God. It is always a question of himself.
Yeah.
So when you read the yous or the any identifying words, it was all I.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember is this is what he struggled with, much like the Jesus in the desert thing. This is what he struggled with. And that's comforting because I'm like, okay, I'm not alone, first off, because this could have been my words.
Yeah.
Minus the brogue. And it fits my personality because it is highly emotional.
Yeah.
But it's also one point of view. There's no wishy-washy. Like it's, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
This is why. Because God is, right? As opposed to the, like David. Sometimes David's like, oh, you just hurt me.
Yeah.
You hurt me, but you're good, but you hurt me. I'm so afraid of you, but I love you.
See, and I'm like, no, you did this to me. I'm in the right. You're wrong.
You mean you were.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I haven't done a blame prayer probably in about 5 years.
Sounds terrible.
There, I almost did.
I have.
Well,
so it's funny, is it took me years to even being willing. I could think it right here,
but you couldn't say it.
I couldn't say it.
Well, yeah, because good Christians don't say those things.
Yeah.
No, the conclusion of depression was a very, very specific word to me from God that has held me to this day of why I don't blame him. I'm like, okay.
But, okay.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to appropriate vulnerability.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't start hearing from God until I was honest with him.
Right. Yeah.
Until I brought my grievances.
Yep.
Perceived. For anybody, they weren't real.
Well, some of them
they were real to me.
No, but I would say some of them were real and some of them were perceived, but you don't get that until he talks to you, until you're vulnerable and open. Exactly. That's a great point, is how many of us are not hearing from God because we're not actually talking to him.
And that's the difference, because I prayed all the time, but they were angry prayers about other people and what they were doing, and why aren't you fixing it? And, and really he was like, sorry, I have to readjust it for my new position. This chair is terrible. I'm never sitting here again.
See, this chair's too big for me. I'm like, I feel like a little child.
Yeah, you kind of look like one.
Exactly.
Derailed that. But no, I was really good at angry prayers.
Yeah.
And it's something I still struggle with, is anger is my go-to emotion. And often it's my only emotion. I can enjoy mirth. I struggle with joy. I struggle with sadness. Yeah. Like, to the point that I miss being able, I don't cry. Like, I get a little watery-eyed like everybody else does in an emotional moment. I don't cry. Yeah.
What's funny is I cry all the time now. Like,
yeah, it's so healthy for you. It's legitimately healthy for you.
Right? Like, my ability to cry reminds me of where I've come from. Yeah. Like, it helps. When I cry, I'm like, oh, I remember when I used to just not. Right? Like, it's a memorial stone in and of itself.
Well, and I don't know, maybe it was because the early years of my marriage were so tumultuous. Like, I feel like I was always right there. Yeah. Like, just falling apart all the time. I don't know if I just wore it out, like I broke them. I don't know. But, anger. Yeah. That's an old friend.
See, I feel like...
That's like a drinking buddy.
But all you've done... sorry, I'm blaming you now. No, but not you. Like, what people do oftentimes is trade one vice that they've perceivably been free of for another one. Right. Rather than actually dealing with the issue. So, for example, this whole journey of walking out of freedom, I was the quiet, submissive, sure, kind of like internally smoldering person, passive aggressive, right? When I started walking through freedom from pornography, all of this stuff, I started getting angry. Okay. And angry, emotional, like all of these things. And I had to learn, like, oh, I've never felt these ways. I mean, back, maybe when I was like 8, like I remember a few explosive times. I'm like, I so killed that and traded it for these things that when I started becoming free of it, all of this passion started coming back. And I remember talking with Lacey, I'm like, babe, I feel, I'm like, oh no, I'm emotional now. I'm a wreck. And we just started talking, like, I'm wondering if I'm actually becoming who God designed me to be, because I remember being silly. I remember being passionate, angry, people, like I enjoyed people. And that didn't start coming back to me until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But it was because I was walking through freedom. I don't know. That was just a interesting note that I had.
So what to your point, what I've experienced is, as I've started to let things go and let things go correctly.
Like genuinely resolve.
Walk through a process and, very few of them had the outcome that I predicted.
Yeah.
That's how I think they're genuine because of that. Because they weren't scripted, even when I tried to script them. It's allowed me to let go of the anger.
Yeah.
Because it used to be days, weeks, months. In one case, a decade.
Yeah, right.
And now it's like, okay, we had an argument this morning, and I meant everything I said. But it's 4:00 now.
Yeah. And
I'm over it.
Yeah.
And whether you're over it or not, I'm going to go apologize for specifically what I meant then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll deal with the consequences
sure.
of what was said.
Yeah.
But I need you to know that no matter how true and accurate or untrue and inaccurate those statements were, that's not where I am now.
Right.
And
right.
if you're ready to move on,
yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to be, because there's times we're definitely not.
Right.
I am.
Yeah.
You know, and I can walk away from that emotion.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at not picking it up in the first place.
Yeah.
Which is definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
So, to your point, you know, your ability was to be angry and mine's to not be angry.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. This is one of the many resources we make available for free at our website, cultivaterelationships.com. Our resources have helped people grow in their relationship with God and others. We've seen people set free from uncontrollable anger and paralyzing fear. We've witnessed estranged family members be reunited after working through our freedom booklet. We've helped people build healthy relationship and coping habits through our coaching videos. And all of these resources are made available for free because of the generous support of people like you. If you would like to become a partner, please visit cultivaterelationships.com/support. Now, I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
I included this one only because I want to talk a little.
Okay.
Crap.
Okay.
All right.
Against me?
No, Lacey.
Oh, Lacey.
I tried to get her to give me some dirt on you.
Yeah.
For this book, and she was just so supportive. And just nope, nothing there. It wasn't that big of a deal for me.
Yeah.
She's so good at deflection.
What were you trying to get dirt on?
No, you know what I mean. Was he in the depths of despair over this?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do it hurriedly because you were out cooking hot dogs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she's like, no, it wasn't that bad.
Over what? You remember
just the book.
Oh.
When he rehashed this as he's writing it out, she's like, no. I'm like, that's disappointing.
No, because I
would have been better media.
Angst and turmoil.
No, I did. I think I did tell her this, but okay. So it's chapter 4, gross.
Okay.
And it's the opening story. The ice cream became disgusting.
Yeah.
It was the product of a lie.
Yeah.
I love that. That just
gets you.
You know, as a fat guy, you're talking my language.
Amen. Speaking of which, I have candy bar ice cream at home. I just got excited to be done with the podcast.
That is deep ass. Yeah, we're gonna have to call it here in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lacey lies to her mom.
Yeah.
Says she's going to the library.
Yep.
She skips across town to her ice cream place.
Yep. Which is on the other side of the.
Yeah, I imagine this to be like a village from a Disney movie, and not that far away in reality. But I'm sure it was actually a distance.
No, okay. You know the cliche.
She was in Michigan.
Yeah.
She's in Michigan.
Yeah, but you know the cliche that bad part of the town.
Yeah.
They literally lived on the road that divided the good part from the bad part.
Mm-hmm.
The good part had the library. The bad part across the street had the ice cream shop.
Okay.
And so
that's the backdrop.
That's the setup. Yep.
So I love what she says here. She's like, I went to Miller's, the name of the ice cream shop, because we didn't get that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you going into detail. Because it was the best and they gave you the most. 3 scoops for $1.
That's right.
All right. She zeroed in on her favorite mint chocolate chip, giving the cashier the money. She accepted the minty treat. Stepping away from the counter, she took her first lick. What have I done? She thought. Shame and guilt began to flood in her mind. Rather than being refreshed by the cone, she became repulsed. The chocolate mint flavor became gross to her. She betrayed her mother's trust. The lie manifested in a cone she held melting in her hand. She immediately threw it in the trash can and ran home.
Yeah.
First off, Lacey, if you're going to commit such a sin and you get mint chocolate chip, the most disgusting flavor ever created, taking something holy, divinely inspired, and then mixing it with a toothpaste flavor. There's some confusion there.
That's hilarious. That's the thing that you have.
It is absolutely gross. I completely understand why she threw it away. All right, butter pecan. We could talk about that. A little sherbet. Little sherbet, rainbow sherbet.
No.
Ah, it's so good.
You know what? I'm going to kick you off my podcast.
If you get the lime carbonated waters and then pour it over mint.
Gross.
Not mint, but the rainbow sherbet.
Gross.
It is so good.
Sherbet's disgusting.
No, it's not. I know you. Because I know what you like. Even your hospital food. I know you ate a lot of sherbet.
I didn't. I was not a sherbet.
You got the Minute Maid lemonade ice creams, didn't you?
Gross. No. Gross. Vanilla? If you want to throw stuff into it, chocolate, caramel, maybe some marshmallows if you want to go the s'more style. Other than that, nothing.
No, milk chocolate is hands down the greatest creation ever.
Amen. I agree.
And better with Dr. Pepper. But I do love sherbet because I was raised by old people.
Gross.
But yeah, no, I read that and I was like, mint chocolate chip. You risked it all for mint chocolate chip?
Mint chocolate chip.
Oh, it's terrible.
All right, what other part of the book?
We barely got. There's so much more.
All right. Go to the next juicy part, and then we'll end there and maybe pick it up later.
All right.
There's so much more that you have?
There is. Like, I didn't think I had done that much, and then I started writing them down. I'm like, oh, I'm halfway through the book, and I have 20 points.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're just so insightful.
This is fun. I like talking about myself.
No, I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
Okay, we'll end on this one. This is also gross. And I guess what I did is I liked when you were specific. Because you have some generalizations in here. Oh, yeah. You've got some stuff that's obviously teaching, and I'm like, well, I know what that became. Chelsea,
blah, blah, blah.
Chelsea has you memorized, and I'm like, how do you?
Yep.
Why would you?
Yeah. I only have a few stories. That's you know what I mean.
Right? But this was our view of ourselves, and I did like this. I think because it was just, it really was just like, yeah, I can identify with both sides of this statement. We strengthen this hopeless perspective by ignoring, denying, or rejecting God's love, mercy, forgiveness, and grace. This demeaning view of our identity is further reinforced through the degrading Christian doctrines we may have been taught. Mm-hmm. These hopeless attitudes become seemingly inseparable from our identity and become a catalyst for our behavior. Who we believe we are will influence what we do. Our identity or the wrong perception of it will determine how we behave.
Yeah.
So, did you ever play the game Never Have I Ever?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if you want my history, go back and listen to the one on fathers. But there was a period of my life where I was absolutely not walking with God. Still believed in God, never lost that.
Yeah, right. Yep.
There is a God. He's Jehovah, right, in my mind. But since he doesn't care about me, what have I got to lose? So we used to play the game Never Have I Ever. And there was this particular friend's older sister that played with us, and she'd done everything.
Okay.
Like
she always won?
No, she always lost.
Wait, I thought you
So it's like, 5 fingers up, never have I ever kissed a guy.
Yeah.
So all the girls lose a finger. And the first one to run out loses.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, but the winner's kind of like a lame.
Yeah, but you're drinking, so I mean, like, we would take a drink, lose a finger, take a drink. You know.
Oh, okay, okay.
So reinforcing identities, right? So I'm, bad company corrupts good character.
Yeah.
I didn't have great character to begin with. As it turns out, I was pretty prideful. Still am, but it's better.
It's not called. Well, if
so anyway, she would always.
You're not. It's not pride. It's just you being right.
Right, and I was right a lot.
There you go.
I'm getting embarrassed now. She didn't like to lose to me.
Okay.
Specifically because I was fairly self-righteous and outspoken about why they should go to church with me tomorrow when we get done drinking.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's like my pornography one.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I had the full spectrum. I was, at this point I hadn't journeyed off into some other more foolish things. And as much as I liked women, not very good at it.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, right. No, same here.
Wasn't very good at it. Turns out if I just shut up, I could have been great at it. But I like to talk. So I ran them all. I always ran them off. But she would always, hers was, never have I ever been a virgin.
Okay.
Since, whatever. She would,
yeah.
It was me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would, take my drink, lose a finger. And she'd laugh and smile. And so when I finally.
How's that even? No, that. Never have I ever...
Whatever, but she made it work.
Got it. Okay.
I don't remember how.
Okay. I was like...
Or maybe it's like, at least I don't remember. It worked.
Yeah.
We were drinking. I don't remember. It's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, I finally ended up hooking up with somebody. And so, and when the next time he played, she pops out and I'm like, all five. And there was that momentary satisfaction.
Yeah.
Hello?
Wait. Hello?
No, I lost you.
Yeah, I lost me too. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm back. There we go.
But it was followed with...
like immediate, shame or regret?
Yeah, because it was immediately like, oh, you did that with so-and-so?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, does it, I mean...
Right. Yeah.
So now I have a new standard I had to meet.
Yeah.
Right? And so there was it just started a cycle of, I'm not good enough.
Right.
I'm already not good enough, which is how I got here in the first place.
Right.
And now I'm not even good enough for these people in their debauchery. I'm bad at being bad.
Exactly. Yes.
And nothing against her. She was actually a really wonderful person who just had baggage like everybody else.
Right.
But so when I read that, I immediately thought of that story.
Okay.
Because it was like I said, I'm bad at being bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my identity and I can't even do this right.
Right.
God doesn't want me. They don't want me.
Yep.
Anyways, I don't know if there's a question in there, but why don't you comment on it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, again, kind of, go ahead.
Specifically on the hopeless perspective. The hopelessness of that perspective.
Yeah.
Of by ignoring, denying, rejecting God's love, mercy, forgiveness, and grace.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? I guess that would be the question. Is what did it look like for you when you were ignoring who you knew God was or could be?
Okay, so I'm going to assume you're talking about pre-freedom.
Yeah. I'll give you 5 minutes to talk about all the good stuff in a minute.
Okay. I think with that, I actually don't know if I thought God was good. I knew he was sovereign and in control.
What's the difference between sovereign and good?
What's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference in your mind? Because that's a pretty unique word choice. Sovereign.
Sovereign is you have things that are under you, right? Sovereign. You can't be sovereign if there's nothing to be sovereign over, right? So sovereign would be like a role.
Okay.
Good is a character trait. And so I knew he was sovereign. I knew he was a king. I knew he was in control. I didn't know if his character was good, though. That's kind of how I break those two up. And again, I would argue my my view of what sovereignty and control has changed immensely.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But so I knew he was forgiving if I earned forgiveness. And again, a misappropriation of different verses to come to that conclusion.
When you were walking through forgiveness with your dad,
yeah,
I remember there was the guy that had made you like write things down and yell at them.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Especially like conservative fundamental Baptist Nate.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine that on the Burnett Square.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly.
No, not specific to a church. Just the idea of it, in a somewhat public area.
Yeah, right. It wasn't. Thankfully, it was just in his office.
Was he the first guy to like? No, Nate, God really does love you. Or was he just the first one you listened to?
No, I've had...
Step back. Because he was assigned to you, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you handle being told that in a manner that you couldn't reject?
I just learned this. For years, I had held Scott responsible for picking that guy. And, because I always would, like, when I was assigned to him for counseling, in my mind, I was like, Scott would be better. Because Scott's more reserved, right? He's not, like, flamboyantly charismatic, And I'm like, Scott would be better. So for years, up until the last podcast that I had with Scott, I thought he chose it. I thought he chose that person. But in the last podcast with Scott, he, not the Christmas one, the one before that, he goes, yeah, I thought I would have been better for you. And yet Dave chose someone else. So that was like, I was like, oh, I've been holding on to an offense. It wasn't an offense, but it's awesome. Like, when you blame someone for something.
Yeah, I could have been, you could have been happily unfreed.
Yeah, right.
If not for Scott.
Exactly. And so shoot, what was the question?
The question was, how did you handle being told?
Oh, at this point.
That God loved you, that he was merciful, that he could.
So
Jesus could identify with you.
Okay. So, we're not there yet. That was a self-discovery. Okay. No, I've had waypoints in my life of men who've contributed to who I am. And so it wasn't like Chris is the pastor's name. It wasn't Chris did it all. Prior to Chris, there was Jonathan. Prior to Jonathan, there was Travis. There was men in my life who kind of did some waypoint for me toward freedom, as messy as it was. What Chris did is force me to be emotional, like forced. So his role, his waypoint was, you are so apathetic in your own spiritual warfare. No wonder you sin. He wasn't that, like, he was super happy and bubbly. This is the Nate translation.
You suck at spiritual warfare.
No, right.
We're going to fix that.
Yeah. No, so this is the Nate interpretation was, no wonder you suck because you're so apathetic. And so, like I tell the story how I listed off all these things and, he had me fold it up, stand on it, and then rebuke the enemy over those lies. Right?
That's I just get uncomfortable every time I hear it.
It was. And so the first time he's like, all right, rebuke, like, charismatic, hey man, brother, so rebuke Satan. And I'm like, Satan doesn't have authority over me. Right? Like,
yeah.
And he's like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that? Satan doesn't have authority over me. It probably a dozen times. It felt like an hour and a half that I had to, like, continually escalate this, It was probably like a minute. But it was just that, him going, no, I want to see passion. Are you genuinely, number one, frustrated at the lies the enemy's been putting into your mind? And are you genuinely passionate about freedom? And kind of the internal voice through all of that is, Nate, but what if you could be free if you do this? right? Just that nagging in the back of my mind. But what if this is it? But what if this time, because I'm now doing things I've never explored in my freedom before, right? And so just that nagging voice, but what if this is the key? Right? Just constantly. But what if this is the key?
I was about to ask you a question, but I know the answer.
What was it?
Have you ever read the poem If by Rudyard Kipling? But you don't read.
Yeah, no, I don't read.
You should actually look that one up.
I don't like poems.
First off, Rudyard Kipling should be required meeting for every man. As a warrior, as a Christian, as a father who lost a son.
Who is it? I don't even know.
Rudyard, you don't, he's famously wrote something called The Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a collection of short stories, and they took one short story and they made it into a Disney movie.
I like the Jungle Book movie, the live action one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they took all these little short stories he wrote and they made one big story out of it.
Oh, cool.
And they left out all the racially insensitive ones.
Well, yeah, it's Disney.
He wrote that while he was with the British Army in India.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, he wasn't a soldier at that point. But so Rudyard Kipling was a Christian, devoutly Protestant, Church of England. Maybe not the same thing as a Christian. I don't know. But I from reading some of his writings, specifically Daniel Radcliffe, he played Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
He did a film that really just kind of, nobody noticed it. It was called My Boy Jack.
Okay.
But he played Kipling's son in the First World War.
Oh, interesting.
And it's the story of how he basically greased palms to get his son a commission because he was nearsighted.
Okay.
And you couldn't wear glasses in the British Army at that time. But he made it happen because his son wanted to serve.
Okay.
And he went missing in action. And ultimately, he died in action very early on.
Okay.
But it was years before they knew this.
Got it.
And so he looked for his son in the hospital wards, in photographs of the dead for years. But he wrote If.
Okay.
And If is just literally, it's all the ifs that assail you.
Okay.
Positive, non-positive. I remember it being a very good poem, but basically everything he wrote was good.
If by
Rudyard Kipling.
If.
Yeah.
Rudger.
R-U-D.
R-U-D.
Y-A-R-D.
Y-A-R. Rudgerd?
Rud?
Yerd.
Yerd.
Got it.
Maybe there is a G in there. I don't know. It'll come up. Just type Kipling. K-I.
Oh, Kipling.
K-I-P-L-I-N-G. Kipling.
Yeah, Kipling. Okay. I suppose I could look up the Jungle Book and yeah. Okay.
But that belief of if it's possible, would you be willing to do it?
Yeah.
And for me, it was always no.
Okay. God has done a lot of ifs in my life, and maybe it wasn't ifs, but it was more like, yeah, I guess they're ifs. Would you trust me if I asked you to do this?
Right.
Okay, so do it. Come on. Well, yeah, there would, like, I remember what it, like, yeah, okay. Yeah. If that's...
And what I'm saying is, like, the back, for me, it was like, no, you first. Mm-hmm. Show me some healing first.
Yeah.
Right? And, I can look back at it now and be like...
Oh, I had those conversations for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I imagine you had more than I did. But for me, it was, heal my dad.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't heal him, but he did give us double the amount of time the doctors told us we would have.
Yeah.
It was almost a decade instead of 4 years.
Mm-hmm. See, like, my pessimistic self would be like, yeah, but he didn't heal your dad. Right? I mean, that's how I am today.
Don't encourage it, Nathan.
No. That's like, when I mean, I have a date. I have a very explicit or very, voice from God when he said that he would heal me. Mm-hmm. And so, my testimony is when God heals me, right?
Right.
And here I am, 42, and...
So are you the oldest living CF patient? Have you ever...
No, I mean, okay. You get into CF as a spectrum. What I mean by that is It's genetic mutations, and depending on the genetic mutation with which influences a protein deficiency will determine the severity of your cystic fibrosis.
But I mean, yours is pretty serious.
Yeah. I'm not going to say I'm the oldest. I don't know.
I'm just saying maybe you should find out. That's worth a Fox News interview or something.
Hey, I already did an interview and I got to meet David Hasselhoff out of it. So back when I was like 6.
All right. Well, this took way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I hope other people found it productive.
I enjoyed it. And we're not even like halfway through the book.
No, we're not. And actually, there is some good stuff later on.
Yeah. Let's just do a part 2 later.
I think that maybe I'll go through and read some of it again.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, did we talk about this directly, indirectly?
Yeah.
Some of the stories are funny.
Yeah.
Some of the stories are funny. Go read the book, Unloved by Nathan Steele. He'll probably give you a copy if you ask. If not, I've got 3. I'll give you one.
Yeah.
This one's autographed, and I'm happy to let it go.
Did I tell you Scott? Okay, so Scott does endorsement in the front of the book.
Yeah.
And so when I had gotten the first publishing copies, I wrote a message to him, a personal message to him, and just what he meant to me.
He gave it away.
No, someone stole it from his office.
What?
He would use it as his personal copy to just like periodically when he's talking to someone and wanting to recommend, he'll like peruse and just like, oh, hey, I know this book and I know this author. Because he has a whole bookshelf of authors he's personally met or in relationship with. And so he has all their books. Mine's one of them. And so he'll, from time to time, peruse them, and that way he can recommend, hey, I know this person and what they're saying is legit. Someone took it from his office. Like, it has a personal inscription from me to him of, and he's like, who would steal it? It's personal. Like, yeah, so someone stole it.
Somebody was really into one of you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Gotta touch the magic.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I don't know.
All right, well,
dude.
Nathan, thanks for letting me behind your desk and being willing to answer some of these.
Oh yeah.
Questions in a depth you're not. It's not you don't normally do.
Yeah.
Either the appropriate vulnerability.
Yeah. Like you said, the 4 people that are listening.
Yeah. I really did intend to get to some happiness at the end.
We will next time, and that's why I legitimately want to finish this up. Is not this one, but like I want to continue. It's because there are some incredible things about my dad that. Whether knowingly or unknowingly, I've picked up from him, and there's a lot of me that is my dad. A lot of the good stuff that's me is my dad. Not to disparage my mom.
Sure, right,
yeah.
And I actually appreciate that you didn't talk about her a whole lot.
Yeah,
because it sounds like it probably wouldn't have been healthy for her, but do you ever think your dad what ifs?
Like from his
because I mean I've seen what you're capable of.
Yeah.
All right, and maybe you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, thought you would achieve.
Dude.
But I selfishly,
my dad,
you're the friendships we formed through Cultivate.
Yeah.
Being involved with Cultivate saved my marriage.
Yeah.
If not saved at least one life. Who was super self-destructive that I was involved with, but you saved my marriage because, so I guess selfishly, like to me, you're a success, right? And that
we'll see. I haven't made all the decisions I'm ready to make.
And I know I'm not the only one. At the time there was like 8 or 9 other families that had been involved or were involved, and they all had similar, if not the same, issues that they had to walk through. It wasn't always a marriage issue, but your willingness to be appropriately vulnerable made the difference. Which is why I wanted to talk about it, because it's not just about you used to suck and now you're good, but it's like relate to people. Yeah. And then let's talk about where God took you. Yeah. Was kind of the idea. Yeah. And then reading funny excerpts.
No, like, okay, so like talk about like the if with my dad. My dad was charismatic, and I mean,
he was outwardly successful. He was a pastor. He was a charismatic speaker.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of how I teach, if you listen to some sermons of my dad, you'll be like, oh, that's neat. And again, it's not things like I studied my dad. It's just there's Larry all over a lot of my ministry.
Well, you have observed behavior too.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure you went to his church for a number of years.
Yeah. I had to take notes too and show it to him when we were done. Yeah, true story. Anyways, no, I want to keep doing this because I want to get into the positives of my dad and things that I've, there's some deep stuff when my dad was a pastor and what he had to go through as a pastor in ministry that, I thought it was just ways my brain worked, but I'm like, oh, that is my dad. His ability to submit under terrible circumstances. I thank my dad for that. Because that's who taught it to me, even though he didn't like sit me down right. I mean, I was like 8, 9, 10. I was 13, I think, when my parents split. And so I'm talking about young, that apparently I absorbed a lot of who my dad was, like the good parts of my dad too. And so that's what I want to get into. I want to get into areas that I absolutely praise my dad.
I really thought in nearly 3 hours we'd be able to get there.
Did you? I
really did.
I was under no illusion.
I was super hopeful.
I was under no illusion. All right.
Until next time.
All right.
Thanks everybody for watching. Maybe we'll switch back now that it's not a surprise anymore for the next one.
Yeah. Goodbye.